away. For you and me, for us and me, all the clouds have rolled away.
I'm going to move this cage over your head so that we can get a better picture of your brain.
In South Carolina, another team of researchers is tracing the flow of oxygen in the brain to discover whether different emotions activate different areas. They have confirmed that any emotion, good or bad, causes one particular area of the brain to burn oxygen.
We will be talking to you through the microphones.
This is an image of the brain sliced right through the middle. The front of the brain is here, and the back of the brain is here. And in color is the area of the brain that's increased in activity in happiness, in sadness, in anger, and in anxiety. This is called the anterior cingulate in the limbic system.
But Dr. Mark George's work has shown that although all emotions cause activity in the anterior cingulate, it's of varying intensity.
That area of the brain has to be active for us to feel an emotion, no matter what it is. And that area is very active during sadness. In contrast, in happiness, that area is activated just a very small amount. And then very interestingly, we find decreased activity in large areas of what we call association cortex. So those are the parts of the brain that don't have a specific task. They're not in charge of moving or seeing. Their job is to integrate activity from all these other modalities and to think and plan and worry. So it's as if during happiness we have to shut off those areas of the brain that allow us to function but that sometimes can get in the way of happiness, excessive worrying or planning.
Dawn is in no doubt that worry is a major block to her happiness.
I usually find that I spend too much time worrying about whether I'm happy. I'm not a particularly easygoing person. I don't find it very easy to relax, and I do spend far too much time worrying about things that are not worth worrying about.
Like many others, Dawn's excessive worries stem from the very poor image she has of herself. Although she successfully juggles motherhood with her private detective work, she knows she won't be happy until she sheds the misconceptions that have dogged her life.
Good afternoon, I'm sorry to trouble you, sir. I wonder whether you might be William Wyatt.
I was always brought up that if you were to be successful, you were single, and that you didn't get married and you didn't have children, that was looked upon as being a failure. And I think it's like programming a computer. When you're a child, if someone programs that into you, when you get to my age, you know that it's wrong, because I know that the children and my husband bring me happiness, and I am happy with that situation. But the programming says that that isn't the way it should be. If I want to be happy, I need to be successful.
Dawn, Keith and Caroline were made to change their negative attitudes towards happiness, the ones they'd had since childhood, such as "I don't deserve it" or "it won't last." To remind themselves of a more positive approach, such as "I like myself" or "happiness is good for me," they put small blue dots where they'd often see them. Each time a blue dot caught their eye, they remembered their new beliefs and stopped themselves from falling back into old damaging patterns of thinking.
Here's a little song I wrote. You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry. Be happy. In every life we have some trouble. But when you worry, you make it double. Don't worry. Be happy. Don't worry. Be happy now.
A month into the trial, Dawn's feel-good factor is really on the up.
I think I've altered the way I look at my life and I look at things. I take them less seriously, perhaps, which is what this has shown me, to take things less seriously and to take care of myself a little bit more instead of spreading myself around too thinly and having no time left for myself.
I feel that I'm a long way ahead to what I was a month ago, and I feel that what has been happening to me through Robert, through the exercises, through everything I'm doing is helping me. It's putting it into practice. Having had 7 years of gradually going downhill, the slope is, I'm going up the hill again now with leaps and bounds. Oh, I feel much more positive about things. Oh, yes, goodness gracious, oh, yes. I feel much more light-hearted about things, yes.
Some of the regime is definitely a bit daunting because it's making me think about things that I wouldn't necessarily want to think about, because I suppose it was something I'd never really thought about before. I'd never really sat down and thought, right, what are the reasons why I'm happy or unhappy? I suppose it's made me sort of sit back and give myself a chance to think about things, whereas before I just been in the habit of just doing things rather than actually thinking about them first.
British research has shown that all happy people share a clear idea of what they want out of life. They have well-defined goals. So for the next stage in the QED happiness course, the volunteers were asked to think about what they wanted to achieve in 5 years, then in 6 months, and then in 1 week. It's important not to be over-ambitious.
Sometimes, I think it's fair to say, people set goals which are so high that they don't succeed in those goals, and in a way that sort of confirms to them that they're no good anyway. You know, we can set goals in a way that actually sort of confirms our worst suspicions about ourselves, that we won't be able to achieve anything. So I'm a great believer in a day at a time. If you can get a day right, you're more likely to get a week right, and you're more likely to get a month right. Yeah, if you can get an hour right even, that's a great help.
I've been making little lists of some minor things like washing the dishes and just tiny little things, so that I felt like I'd have done it. If at the end of the day, if all 2/3 of it were done, I'd achieved something. Whereas before, I would maybe leave things and at the end of the day think, oh, no, I haven't done anything completely. But now I'm feeling like I've gained something by completing minor tasks.
I would like to set myself quite a few tasks for the next few years. I would like to think that I could perhaps be more sociable. I haven't been very sociable over the last few years. I've alienated myself through thinking that I was a boring old thing. I would like to become much more social again. I would like to be able to feel that I could open my heart and house to somebody, to involve them in my life here and make them as happy as perhaps I will feel myself.
What I'm going to do is to ask you to rate your mood on a 9-point rating scale. So the first rating would be on positive affect.
About a 4. 4 would be, yeah.
Somewhere close to the middle. Yeah.
They're trying to find out whether there's a scientific connection between goal achievement and happiness at Cornell University in New York. By giving their subjects different cocktails of drugs, they've already identified 2 distinct types of goal-related happiness.
One, the incentive type of happiness that involves a great deal of motivation to go and achieve certain goals. Second, a gratifying type of happiness that we feel gratified and satisfied when we actually do accomplish the goals.
The first of these, incentive happiness, is the good feeling we get when we know we can attain a goal, when the end is in sight, if you like. It's linked to the brain chemical dopamine.
Incentive happiness relies on dopamine cells that project up to areas underneath the cortex, which is what you see here. And release of dopamine is known to create this very powerful sense of incentive, desire, elation, euphoria, enthusiasm, optimism, and a sense of power. And there are various drugs of abuse, like cocaine and amphetamine, which operate through the dopamine system that artificially create that sense of incentive and desire and euphoria.
It is now believed that dopamine, goals, and happiness merge in the prefrontal cortex because this is where we create the image of our goals.
Dopamine is very important in the kinds of rewards that are associated with anticipated goals. And the reason that I say that is because the prefrontal cortex is a site that we know is critically important in the formation of goals. And the reason it is because when we think about what a goal is, it is the mental representation of a desired state which has not yet occurred. And so we hold that representation in our mind, and that representation then helps to guide our behavior toward the acquisition of that goal.